What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I'm your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house.
This is the Motivation Monday. Happy Christmas week to everyone. Thank you for tuning in with us. I know this week can be a little bit slower, but it's still a great week to make progress, celebrate, enjoy, and we have a jam-packed, incredible episode planned for you today. And we're going to start with a really fun first question that I know is most everyone's favorite, so I'm excited to get into this. And the question is, what is the most ideal body fat for performance and health? And this is a great question because there's a big fascination with body fat. Being a low body fat, being a single digit body fat, you hear it all the time. It's a common thing when you go into a gym. They'll usually walk you over to some machine and give you some free personal training session and get you on some random body fat tester of some regard because it gives you a baseline of where you should improve. In my opinion, those machines aren't the most accurate, but it is a metric and it is an easy metric to improve. And of course, we want to put on more muscle and we want to take away more body fat. And I love this question because it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. I think most generally people will say, I want to be shredded like XYZ guy. I want to be 2% body fat. And when people say that, they don't actually really understand what body fat is, how it works, and how it can be a tool for you. So the first and foremost thing is obviously having a consistent, accurate form of measurement. So the lowest tier of measurement, in my opinion, is a home scale. So this is when you just get on a scale. It uses like an electro pulse go through your body and guesstimates your body fat based off your weight and that pulse. And the problem with that is if you're a bigger person, it'll overestimate your body fat. If you're a leaner person with more muscle, it'll overestimate your body fat. So it can be all over the place. Where it can be good is it can be consistently inaccurate. So for instance, for me, I've been like 22, 23% on these things, which would mean I'm actually a really high body fat individual and actually outside of my metric of what I believe an ideal range is. So for me, I take it with a grain of salt and I use it as a tool. A step better than that would be like a bod pod at your gym. They're a little bit better, one where you can hold handles. They'll have a little bit more of an advanced measurement. You might put your height in there. That'll give you a better indication, but it still won't be perfect. There can still be a fault in these machines. Calipers, I would kind of classify as the same level. They're a great tool and they're technically one of the most accurate ways of testing, but there's so much human error. Like if I'm checking Kyle's body fat with these body fat calipers, I just grab a little bit less fat or a little bit more and would really throw off the metric. So as you can see, body fat is an exact, precise science. And then the highest gold standard is like a DEXA scan. And that's what we like to do. The problem is where we're from, there's only 2 in the whole city, only one that's available for you to use publicly that you can pay for. It's about $75 a session. And a DEXA scan effectively was used originally to measure bone density, but it's also a phenomenal tool for seeing your free mass, your lean mass, all these great things, the weight of your bones. And it's like the gold standard for body fat. So I like to use this scale the most. I've used the other scales previously. Most generally, even if you have a home scale, if you're at like, let's say 18% on the scale and you see it going up and your goal is for it to be going down, you can use that data and say, okay, this isn't what I'm trying to do. The same way, if it's going the other direction and that's your goal, that is a good skill. So use it with a grain of salt. I do find for most people, you can get away with these general measurements and they can be totally fine, but they can give you a false security. For example, one of our friends was high 20s at a DEXA scan, which is very accurate. But when we went to the gym, he was much, much lower. He was lower 20s. And he said, I like this one better. And unfortunately, that's just not how it works. Like some can shoot you higher or lower than others, but they are just a tool for something that you can use. And the best way to track it really comes down to what you have access to. I think most gyms, well, not most, some now do have bod pods that you're available to book. It's a great place. It's a pretty high level way to see. If you have this scale at home, you can use that. But now going to actual best ranges, like I said, where people go wrong is your body needs a certain amount of body fat to actually function. So if you were to say, I want to be 2%, that's not going to happen. You're going to drop dead and die. Like your body actually needs a base amount of body fat. Even for women need like at least like 14 to 16% of their weight is body weight to be at a healthy point. So for men, obviously, if I'm 16%, I wouldn't be very lean. But as a woman, that would be exceptionally lean. And there's a reason for that, right? If you think of childbearing purposes and breasts and hips, like you're going to hold more fat naturally. It's actually important for your hormone profile. So that's not to discourage you and say you can't be lean, but that's for you to understand that numbers will matter. So Quite simply, this is my metric of what I think is the best from my experience, from coaching, from everything. But I feel the ideal body fat range for men is 10 to 20%. And I don't believe there's much of a reason to go outside of this range in terms of optimization. 10% you could expect to be quite lean. You'd have all visible abs. You might see a little bit of vascularity even in your stomach or a little bit of striations, but you're not going to be stage lean. Like if you wanted to be stage lean, you'd probably be 6+%, 6 to 10%. Definitely lower for bodybuilding. You can be a little bit higher for men's physique. The problem with being too low in these range is you can actually have health issues. You can have less insulin sensitivity. When I was really lean, your pumps can absolutely suck. So you can be in the gym doing everything. You just don't feel that blood flow. Your sleep can be affected. So being lean has a cost. And that's where I recommend if you want to get hyper lean, you should do it for a time and you shouldn't aim to do it long term because it just is not a realistic thing to do. It takes a big toll on you. And everyone's so different. Some people can settle leaner than others, and some people can't. So you can only know by experimenting and playing, but you will notice the lower you get, the more dangerous it can be to affect your health and put you in a little bit of a tougher spot. On the flip side, if you're pushing to that 20%, men will say they're bulking and doing all these things. That isn't always the best range either because there can be quite a lot of fat in that range, and that also can be a negative for your hormones. So it's entirely different for everyone. I recommend playing with it. I myself usually am between 12 and 15% body fat on a DEXA scan. That is where I feel best, and that's what I like the most. So I have the most success there. For women, by the way, because I forgot to say it, I would say about 18 to 20% is where you want to be. You don't want to be much higher than that because you're going to be holding fat for no reason. And like I said, if you're lower than that, that can cause quite a lot of risk. You can have a lot of hormonal issues. You can lose your period. Your energy can be all a mess. Your sleep can be a mess. So that's where thinking you want to be lean, and when you see photos of people, they're usually lean for a period of time. They're not walking around that year round. That's where it's tough. It's not to say you can't be leaner. It's the more so an issue of walking around year round. But what are your thoughts on all that, Kyle?
Yeah, and I actually saw reels from a coach recently who was documenting all of his different body fat ranges starting around 20 and then all the way down. And I like what Josh said about being that 12 to 15 range because that was where he ranked it to be the absolute best, right? Because you feel good, you look good. It's like your life is also good. And then as he went down, the end, when he stepped on stage, it was below 7%. And he was just saying that it was horrible, right? He got there for a certain amount of time and then it was just all right, let me get out of this point. So it is really, really important to just evaluate because having done, and I have a record of all my different DEXA scans, I know where I feel good. And I will say the 12 to 15 to me is just a really good sweet spot. You can also search on Google. And if you want to use some photos, I think there's going to be better photos being done. I saw Jeff Nippard's actually getting people into his actual studio and he's doing true tests to make sure that they're accurate. And you can use these photos to see a baseline of what you would be at a certain body fat percentage. So that is pretty interesting. But obviously you have to be mindful of your different genetics because if I look at these different body fat photos, I carry more fat in my stomach area. So even if I'm 12%, I won't have shredded abs. But then my upper body will just be completely diced. It'll just, the veins will be popping like crazy. So they won't exactly be as accurate, but it is really cool to have these things at the top of your mind is what you actually feel good at, what you actually want to do. Because to me, this whole journey is lifelong, right? I've tested it out. I've been over 20% body fat. I've been closer to probably sub 10% years and years ago when I was 155 pounds. I didn't love that, but I know when I'm mid 170 pound range, I'll be, let's say, just around 15%, maybe slightly more. It's a really good sweet spot to be in. And that's where I think it's so important when you evaluate this whole body fat percentage, how you feel. You want to take everything into consideration. You want to take in your relationship with food. You want to take in your strength. You want to consider everything because it's so important to understand where you want to be and where you should be. So I think that's one of the most important things because even when I think about it, let's say I'm not always accurate within keeping track of my body fat percentage, I'll still know, okay, if I was to do this DEXA scan, which I just did, and I was 174 pounds, and I've been really consistent with my strength training. I've been hitting everything consistently, and I'm let's just say continuously monitoring the scale, that still, like, if I'm keeping track of my measurements, which is going to be another great tool if you don't have accurate ways to keep track of your body fat percentage, and use my scale, and I'm in the same range, I'll know that I'll be in the sweet spot, kind of where I want to be. And these are different things that you can use as well. Obviously, I love keeping track of body fat percentage and looking back on that, but the scale and the measurements and the photos are the things that can also keep helping you understand how your progression is and all that good stuff. So yeah, I thought those were some great points that Josh raised as well.
Yeah, Kyle nailed it too. There are a lot of nuances, right? Like I could be happy at 15% body fat because I naturally store less fat in my stomach. So I could look like a little bit leaner, like I have abs. Whereas maybe that could bother Kyle more if he's the same body fat. And that's why like I'm not crazy about it as a metric, because just a number. People get all in their head. Like if you loved how you look and you saw the number was higher than you wanted, like that shouldn't take away from your happiness with your physique, right? It should just be a tool for you to say, okay, I could be even leaner. But it's a sliding scale, right? As you get leaner, usually it's going to be harder to keep muscle. As I mentioned, it's going to be harder to have energy. Your hormones take such a nosedive. Another thing a lot of people don't think about, but you become like hyper reactive to like sickness as well, because your immune system just gets destroyed, right? Because your body's just operating on fumes. Whereas when you're bulking, there's a lot of perks there, right? You're going to have more energy coming in. You're going to have a better hormone profile. Things are going to be better. You're going to sleep better, but you are going to hold a bit more fat. And then if you slip that scale further, the problem is the more body fat you hold, the more your all-cause mortality increases. So the different ways you could actually pass away can affect you as well. So it is a delicate scale, and that's why I like these ranges. Once again, 10 to 20% for a man, and you can experience and see what feels best. If you're someone who likes looking really lean and you like the suit look, you could stay closer towards 10, and like that doesn't bug you. Eat super clean, it's no problem. Or if you're like, I want to be really strong, I don't mind having a little bit of a gut, like I'm happy towards 20, I just want to look like I have muscle and balance, and that's great for you as well. And those things will shift. And then for women, 18 to 26%, you can see what's best, right? And there's a play too, because the leaner you get, the more you're going to lose muscle, maybe lose some of your shape, some of your curve. So you need to find what works best for you. And that's where I recommend avoiding these massive, crazy swings with body fat, but using this as a tool, using this as an awareness principle, and obvious for me, even trying to get bigger and have more muscle. And like I've been like 215 pounds at 12% body fat, which is incredible because I've put on a ton more muscle, and it's been a really good just physique, a good level of happiness. And you can experiment what works best for you. If you want to get crazy lean, I recommend like doing it at least once, booking photos, booking something to be excited towards, because you want to document that and have those photos and say you've done it. I think everyone going through it once is good, but of course you want to be aware of the cost, because if you're miserable, you're not eating anything, you're starving all day, you're snappy at everyone, you're not sleeping right. It's like, is that how you want to operate? So that's where it becomes a delicate line. And obviously we work hard to help our clients find a good level that they feel best at. But if you stay in these ranges, I recommend, and I'll keep them in the show notes so you can go ahead and see them. You will notice it'll be a little bit more comfortable for you.
Yeah, and the one thing we were just talking before this, that we're going to be booking our next DEXA scan, so that's going to be really motivating, because we like to compare. Like we have a record of all of our recent ones, and I have one of me at 195, I have one of me at 168, so it's like really cool to see. But even Josh and our buddy Jeremy, so we're going to do a little competition. Josh will take the win, and I'm going for second. That's going to be my goal. But we were saying that like you can't lie, like you can't cheat these things. It's just going to be, you show up, you see exactly what your body fat distribution is, how much visceral fat you have. You see so much great data. And once again, I know Josh said they're not always accessible, but it is really cool to know, because there's a lot of different ways people will cheat themselves. And I'll use an example of someone I know stopped going to the gym, started to eat slightly better, and then just lost, in my opinion, probably a lot of muscle. And then the scale ends up being the same. So you could say, oh, well, I'm still 200 pounds. I was 200 pounds, but then the actual physique and the actual metrics, they're a little bit off just because of these different reasons, right? If you happen to take measurements, which we do always encourage, just be honest, because a lot of times people can say, hey, my arm got bigger. They could do it when they're flexed. They could just not wrap it around tight enough. Even for photos, I see a lot of people, they would suck in a little bit more, they try to get better lighting. So at the same time, I really encourage you obviously to try to figure out your body fat percentage and be honest with it. But when you are using these other measurement tools, just be honest with yourself. When you take progress photos, and I think that would probably be the best indicator for you to consistently gauge, just try to keep things very simple. Try to keep everything the same. And that way you can still have different measurement tools to make sure you're on track and you're doing everything accordingly. So that I just had to add that in because I know some people are wondering, well, if I can't always track my body fat percentage, like what else should I do? And I wanted to talk about these other measurement tools, especially the things we use for our clients, because they'll send us photos every single month, which is great. We get our measurements done every month. And then we also will make sure that the scale is moving according to the goals. And as long as you're doing the actions every day with your workouts, your walks, your nutrition, and you are moving forward, like that's really what we care about. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, it's an additional tool on top of photos, measurements, and your weight. Your weight's one of the best indicators, especially as you become more advanced. It's a good tool for me. There are a lot of visual cues, as I had mentioned, like Kyle will notice I'll get vascularity in the shoulders as it gets leaner. I'll notice my abs coming in more. You might notice you have like a 2-pack, 4-pack, 6-pack as you get leaner, certain veins, but it's a little more advanced because that's as you get to know yourself. But I would highly recommend at least every year doing some kind of body fat test, either a DEXA or a bod pod. I would also recommend doing your blood work, like doing these more in-depth, high-level things, because what's cool about a DEXA scan is they send you a whole report. You can see the symmetry of your muscles. You can see all these different things. And what's phenomenal about that is I can look back to my DEXAs from 6 years ago, and that's a hard line of like, am I progressing? Are my legs actually getting bigger? Are my biceps getting bigger? So it's a really cool metric and something to have. So I think that was a phenomenal question. Once again, I'll leave those ranges in the show notes so you have access to that. That was our primary question. And now we're going to jump into some quotes, some thoughts, as well as a client who's absolutely crushing it. And this is definitely a season of reflection before we hop into the new year, which is incredibly, incredibly exciting. I've already started brainstorming a lot and really just reflecting on the year I've had, the year I want to have, and just excited for the direction ahead. So I'll start with my quote because I think it is applicable to what I just said, and that is, energy flows where intention goes. So it's a simple one, but if you're constantly thinking about the news in the world, or if your car is going to break down, like that's where all your energy is going to go, right? If you become hyper fixated on something, or become hyper fixated on something bad happening, or the wrong just focuses in your life, like being too concerned with other people's social media or what celebrities you're eating for breakfast, right? Like where you put your energy will flow where your intention is. So if your intention is to grow, to improve, to eat healthier, to be a better version of yourself, right? You're going to see more energy flow there. You're going to feel more fulfilled there. And I think even what's cool with the gym is it scares a lot of people, the thought of being healthier, cooking more, eating better foods, being in the gym more often. But you'll notice as you start doing it that you like it, and you'll be able to apply more energy towards it. You'll find vigor and challenge and excitement behind it. And I think it's just a very simple principle where if you can change your aims and really refocus what you're looking to achieve, you'll notice that you'll actually feel more fulfillment and excitement towards that as well.
Yeah, it's a great reminder because even for myself, sometimes I'll just reassess my habits and my routine, and I realize, I fell off watching more motivational YouTube videos, and like I wasn't reading as much, and I just feel like my energy towards where I was trying to put it, it just wasn't as optimal. And even as of late, just trying to get back into just like a really good routine, trying to just be super on it, like just really motivated. I just feel like because I've been doing so much, whether it's like a YouTube video in the back, and then, goal setting, and Josh has been setting things he wants to do for 2026, and we want to close out 2025. And that's all I've been thinking about. It's just like, all right, let's do this. That's where our energy is going to go. Whereas like Josh said, when you just have all these other things such as social media, and even me being logged out of it, like that's been great as well. So yeah, it's amazing. Cause I know a lot of people who will have struggles and they'll complain a lot. And then it's just like, when you look at the actual routine, it's like, no wonder you're not feeling motivated. It's like just watching sports and keeping track of that. And then although I love sports, 10 hours of Netflix and all this stuff. And then it's just like, that's where your energy's going. So I really like that quote. And on that note, Josh sent me a video, and I've been watching a lot of them lately. It's just been about people like who've started and kind of from scratch, and they just like built up some incredible things, whether it's a streamer, whether it's like an artist or anything like that. It's just really cool. And one guy who I used to follow, Kai Cenat, he is like probably the number one Twitch streamer, if I'm not mistaken now. And he said a quote that just had me just stop. And it was just, slow motion is better than no motion. And I think this is so applicable for this time of the year as well, because a lot of people just completely shut down, right? Once a certain date hits, and then just, what? I'll start again January 1st. I'm not going to do anything. Like, I'm just, I'm just not doing it. Whereas like, there's going to be other people who are like, hey, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to try to do my best, but I'm still going to keep going, even if it's slow motion. And then once January hits, you just ramp it back up, which is, in my opinion, a better way to do it than just completely stopping. So if there ever is a challenging time, and I've had a lot of conversations with clients who would maybe have a busy season, maybe a busy transition from one job to another, maybe moving states. There could be an injury we have to navigate as well. They understand the concept of this. Like, just even if it's to a lesser degree, if you're going at a slower pace, but you're showing up and you're actually consistent, that's going to make such a big difference in your long-term results. So I just want to share that with you. Slow motion is better than no motion. And on that note, we're just going to talk about some things that have us excited, that's on our mind. And obviously with it being close to the new year, we're very close to Christmas. I've been doing a lot of reflecting. I know Josh has been doing a ton as well. And I made a New Year's video recently just talking about like when I was looking up the actual stats, and I wasn't 100% sure on these stats, but I did try to check it out a few different times. They said over 90% of people by February have actually given up on their goals, or they've just not achieve them and they just won't achieve them. And I just thought of how crazy it is that we spend a lot of time thinking about it. We have so much great intention, January 1st, or if you start beforehand, which I highly recommend, it's just kind of sad because you start to lose trust in yourself. And I always say the best way to have confidence in yourself is just to do the things you say you're going to do. So if this year you say, you know what, I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to lose body fat, and then by February you're just eating like you were before and you're not seeing change, you've 1,000% lost confidence in yourself because you believe you don't have what it takes, you don't deserve it, you're never going to achieve it. And what you don't realize is because this has happened in your fitness journey, it's going to happen in a relationship and then in your work life, and it just consistently compounds. So I've got a lot of great tips on this. I don't want to just jump into it too early because the last question will be New Year's based, but I really, really encourage you, whatever goals you're setting, try to keep it as simple as possible. Don't set 3,000 goals that you're excited about because you're just super comfy and you're got a couple coffees and a couple espressos in there, just like I do right now, which I'm super fired up for. But set reasonable goals, set specific ones, have actual action steps and review it consistently. That is the best way you will see success, as well as join something that will get you accountability. Right? Our New Year's challenge is going to be starting January 1st. We just decided we're going to be giving away thousands of dollars in prizes. And we're so excited. Like, our best transformations and everything we've ever done, like, a lot of people have come from just doing a challenge. They built momentum. They started to feel incredible and they actually had accountability. And what's great about our challenge is we build you up to the point where you can succeed, not just for 1 month, not 2 months, but for the rest of the year. So if you're looking to take advantage of this and join for early access, we like to reward action takers. Just message us New Year's Challenge to our Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusUSFIT. We can't wait to help you out.
Yeah, this challenge is going to be a ton of fun. We're going to talk more about what we're doing in the new year is one of our questions. So I won't spend too much time jumping into that. But one thing where people really go wrong is they overestimate how much they can do in a small period of time, and they underestimate how much they can do in a long period of time. So I love looking at goals in a year time span. Like, even a month is a solid amount of time, but when you consider 12 good months, even to Kyle's point of just consistent small progress, it's absolutely amazing what you can actually achieve in that time. And that's what really excites me for this new year. So I really like to start with my yearly goals, work back to my biannual year goals, I guess you could say, every 6 months or so. And then from there, I'll go to monthly, and then I'll start to break that down into like, what do I need to do in front of me this week? So once again, this can absolutely be your year. And I think if every year you say it's going to be your year, or you're going to get in shape, or things are going to get better, and you just have this position of hope, but you don't do anything about it, like nothing will change unless you make something change. So this challenge is exactly meant to be that. And that's why we did the scholarship that's closing today. We're really excited to announce the winner for that, which is going to be great. Well, all the winners rather, because we want to remove every barrier, and we want to be on your team, right? You deserve to be fit, healthy, and happy. And it truly doesn't need to be hard. That is something I absolutely believe. No matter your situation, no matter your skill set, you can be exceptionally fit. You can be super lean with a ton of muscle and not much fat. It just takes some small changes, right? And change is hard. Sometimes it feels like your life's being ripped out of you when you change something, right? Because we have our norms and our comforts, and leveling up and evolving can be tough. And as you go into a new year, like, I encourage you to embrace that, because being stuck in your old habits is only going to either keep you the same or make you worse. So I challenge you this year to be better. That's my big thought. And that's something even for myself I'm thinking on. But now I want to go ahead and get into someone who has gotten better through the program, who's seen amazing change, who was struggling before. Who do we have?
Yeah, and this week we're actually shouting out Marc. So if you're watching on YouTube and just our video, you can see his transformation, which is absolutely incredible. If not, then you can also check out our Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusUSFIT. We're going to be sharing his transformation, his tips, his testimonial, all that great stuff. But what was really cool is Marc absolutely crushed it in one of our challenges. So as you guys know, we love doing these just because we feel like this is the momentum that people need, right? To build a habit, it's going to take, in my opinion, around 30 days. Some studies say 21 days, some say 66 days, whatever that exact number is. But 30 days of just relentless work, of drinking your water, of hitting the gym, of hitting your calories, of checking in, of doing everything, you can be absolutely unstoppable, right? Like Josh said, like that's our challenge for you this year, is to be just the best version of yourself. And what's cool is Marc actually got a $2,000 grand prize, and he ended up winning that, which was awesome. And he's just a completely different person. And lately I've been thinking a lot about, I guess you could say, obsessions, addictions, like in terms of just people who struggle. There's a lot of things that go on, right? It could be an unhealthy relationship with food. It could be alcohol. This was one thing that Marc completely cut out. He went fully sober, and he took all of the obsessions and other potentially bad addictions and transferred it over into fitness, into going out for runs, going out for walks every day, hitting the gym. And it was just so cool to see the transformation. So even as we go into this new year, it's just so powerful when you think about it. Like when you actually think of the bad habits that we may have, whether it even could be too much TV time, too much screen time, just things that are holding us back. And we take all of that energy, as Josh's quote was, like, and bring it over into the other side of great stuff that's going to be good for you, whether it's the gym, walks, good nutrition, healthy breakfast, good sleep. You will be a completely different person by the end of this year. So it was awesome. You know, Marc absolutely crushed it in the challenge. And once again, if you're looking to take your 2026 to the next level, just message us. You'll be able to take part. $1,000 grand prize, as well as a guaranteed prize upon completion. We would hate to see you miss out.
All right, we're going to reach back into the mailbag for our second question, and that is, I'm wondering if I should focus on building muscle or losing fat first. I've been training a few years and I'm a 15% body fat man.
So this is great, and I touched on it a little bit earlier on because I would say I could be pretty comparable in this case where, you know, depending on the time that you were to test, in that 15% range. And one of my most important things to consider for you, and this is something a lot of people overlook, is what do you actually want to do? Like not what social media is telling you should do, not what your good friend is telling you and recommending to you, but what means the most to you. Especially because right now we're in a bit of a different season. And obviously if you're living in sunny Florida or wherever it is, like you're going to be shirtless a lot. You'll be by the pool a lot. You may have a vacation coming up, but I'm such a big fan of having different seasons of your journey where you are either in maintenance, you're in a slight surplus, or you're going to be in a deficit, right? And that will all depend on your journey and what you have coming up. But within a lot of my client check-ins, I've been evaluating where they're at, touching base with what they actually want and what their aspirations are. Because let's just say I have a few people are at 15%. I've got one guy who's got a vacation coming up in February. He's going to be going to Mexico, and then he's going to the Philippines a month after. So he wanted to start his cut early. He's ready for it. He doesn't care about the holidays, and he's like, I want to get locked in, which is awesome. And then I've got other people who are just more so really excited for the summer, right? So like right now, obviously it's right before January. If we spend the next few months in a slight maintenance and then bring our calories up a little bit, we might end up at 17% body fat, end up getting your calories up super, super high. You'll be feeling really good in a t-shirt, in a sweater, which is like in winter, mostly what people are going to be wearing. And then once spring and summer hits, then we can bring the calories back down and lower it. And I've got quite a few people who just want to do that simply. They want to enjoy the holidays a bit more. They want to just, feel a little bit bigger in a t-shirt because that's mostly what they're wearing, or long sleeves. And then there's others who just are wanting to, get ready for a trip. And I think it's so important to consider that, because if you were to ask me in summer and say, hey, I'm 15%, I'd be like, hey, I want to cut down. Like I've got some pool parties I'm going to, and I'm going to be, shirtless quite a few times, and I'm doing this, that, and the other, then that's what I'm going to do. So it's really a matter of what you feel best at, because even in this range, like for me as an example, as I start to get leaner and I start to just like cut my body fat in a t-shirt and like maybe a sweater, I'll just not be as happy with how I look, just because I'll get a little bit skinnier as I lose my body fat. But then shirtless and in a tank top, I'm very happy as the veins start to pop out and my lower body fat percentage is showing, right? So that's going to be my main answer, is just really spend that time reflecting, because that's the most important thing here.
Kyle nailed it. And asking yourself what you want is so obvious, but I think so overlooked, because people do what other people want. Like maybe you're at a Christmas party and everyone goes, man, you're looking skinny. You're a skinny guy. And you've been cutting and you feel good that you've been cutting, but everyone just keeps calling you skinny and small. And even if they don't mean it that way, you can take it a different way, and you could immediately respond by saying, I'm going to bulk, I'm going to be huge. No one's going to call me skinny again. And then the next party comes around, you proved everyone wrong. And they go, oh my gosh, what happened to you? You let yourself go. You're looking a little plump or little or something crazy, right? Like, and then right away you're like, oh, I need to cut. So when you're doing it for other people and you're overreacting to any little response, any little comment, that is not the move. You want to ask yourself, like, what's my game plan? What am I working towards? And you're going to have moments where things look better and worse too. Like even myself, I was just really sick. I got really dehydrated. And it's funny because I've been bulking, and my wife a few times said, you look so skinny, like to me. And it's just because I'm dehydrated, I'm sick. I've definitely lost some weight from that. It's not fun, but I could make a crazy overreactionary decision and just start eating garbage, trying to put my weight back on in a panic. But that's not the move at all. I've been eating really healthy, really clean, and I'm going to stick to my plan, and I'll build it up. And we get knocked down, we get knocked back sometimes. So for you, if you're 15% body fat, if your goal is to put on as much muscle as physically possible, you should likely be bulking, because that's gonna help you with that goal. You can push up to that upper threshold, maybe 17, 18, 19% body fat where you feel best. Then you could begin that cut to take that off, a mini cut, and you could continue on that goal of being as muscular and jacked as possible. If you like your level of muscle, you just want to get stronger, you want to be lean and mean, cut. Go ahead and cut. There's no problem with that. You can always bulk later, but it's important you have a tentative plan and you stick to it. And just the same, I don't think there's anything wrong with maintaining. If you're happy where you are, you could say, I want to eat around the same amount of calories, and I want to try and eat cleaner and just the best foods for me to train harder. And you'll notice you can actually lose a little bit of body fat and gain a little bit of muscle without doing any crazy major changes, because maybe that's what makes most sense for you in this phase of life. So that's where it really depends. And I find it gets a little bit more difficult if you're like skinny fat. We've spoken to that before, because generally there is a right answer as to where you should start. But that's a different topic than what we have right now. This is a pretty flexible range. And if you're like someone like this, like you're clearly pretty fit, and I know it sounds like 15% is a lot of body fat, we're going to assume this is accurate, but most people are probably walking around about like 20, like most guys, right? They'll have a little bit of a beer belly, a little bit of muscle, a little bit of an awkward posture. And usually that's their starting point. And you'd usually be better to clean that up and then to reassess and adjust everything. But like I said, everyone is so different. It really comes down to where you feel your best. Do you want to be a bigger person carrying around more weight, or do you want to just be really lean? Is there a reason it's better for you to be lean. And there really truly isn't a right answer. I've had different phases where I felt better with more different things. I think I'd be a lot bigger if I was like 225, like I'd have a lot more muscle. I just don't feel good up there. So I generally stay around that 215 range. That's where I personally feel my best. So that's typically where I'll stay. And I won't vary too much between outside of 210 to 220. That is where I feel best. So there's what's optimal for you, and it's something you can play with over time. And the better you get with macros, the more freedom you actually have to manipulate and change this number. And to Kyle's point, if you had an event you want to get shredded for, you could do a 6-week cut and get absolutely peeled and pull out of that. Maybe over the winter you want to bulk. Like, you will have those opportunities at your disposal.
And one thing I'm really glad Josh brought up is that most people will underestimate their body fat. So, we'd be having a conversation. There'd be a dude who's just, pretty decent, right? He might be 14%. He'd be like, dude, I'm 100% sub 10%, man. There's just no way. And that's something to consider, especially when you're not fully aware, as a lot of people will just think they're like way leaner than they actually are until the numbers are actually there. But the last thing I want to mention on this is it's really important. Like, my other tip is just to consistently check in with yourself. So when you do decide to go down a route, let's just say you wanted to start to bulk and you wanted to go up a little bit in body fat percentage, but also you're going to gain a ton of muscle. Just check in with yourself, set a reminder every few weeks. Hey, how am I feeling? Right. And this is what we do for our clients, because I've had some people, I would just get them on the path of doing a bit of a lean bulk. And then at a certain point, they're just like, you know what? I'm not loving it. I'm okay with just, being a little bit leaner. I want to be a bit leaner. I don't love eating this much food. And then I just check in with them. And then instead of me doing what I want to do for them, I'm actually able to do what they want and what they're paying for, right? And like helping them feel their absolute best. And I see a lot of people, they just will set a goal and they're like, all right, I'm bulking for the next 6 months, but then they don't actually evaluate, like, where am I at? Have I gained too much fat? How am I actually feeling? Like, am I doing this for myself? And when you set these reminders to check in with yourself, you'll be able to make the right decisions for what you actually want. So obviously this is what we do. So every week we do a video check-in with our clients. And then as we do our monthly big check-ins, going through the measurements, the photos, all that stuff, when they send it and we're talking about the future goals, I'm just like, okay, my first question is, hey, how are you feeling? Like, how do you feel about the results for this last month? I'll be able to give feedback afterwards, but I like to just see what's going through their head, because then I'm able to make adjustments based off of what they actually want instead of what I think they should do, because I think that's a very big common mistake. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah. And the main thing is, any path you're on, you should be improving. No one's goal is to put on a ton of muscle, or to put on fat. No one says my goal is to put on fat, right? But people get very lazy, especially when they're bulking or they're just floating sideways. And they'll take their foot off the gas, and will actually end up being a counterproductive time. They'll just put on a lot of fat and train a bit heavier. Like, that isn't your goal at all. So as long as, no matter what you're doing, you're working towards just like building new muscle or losing fat while building muscle, you'll be absolutely okay. So just being intentional, using 80-20. If you're doing a really big bulk, you could move that as far as 60-40, and you can use those tools at your disposal. But I find, like, hard dates and like the more data you can take, the more you can be consistent to it, because sometimes a bulk can really run away from you, and a cut can also run away from you. There's people that will cut for eternity and they'll just never put an end to it. They'll never achieve their goal, or they'll keep like just thrashing themselves into being too lean. That's not what you want to do either. And once again, if you're stuck with these things, these are all things we help you with. I can assure you that with this New Year's challenge, you'll be a better version of yourself. Like I said, the challenge is just so fun because there's a lot of incentive of like, we're starting right on January 1st. There's no excuses. It's a challenge. You're building momentum and you're still getting coaching during this challenge and after. So you're having that continued support to say, okay, I'm going to be better. I'm going to build a lot of momentum into 2026, and then I'm going to be able to really carry things forward. So that's going to pass real quick. Don't put it off. I know maybe you're thinking, oh, that could be good. Maybe I should do that. Like, just send us that message, get that process started. We will take great care of you. Just message New Year's challenge to us on Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit. We'd love to shred alongside you for that, and it'll be a ton of fun. But now we're going to jump into our third and final question, and that is, what are you doing to prep yourself for the new year? How do you like to close out the year and start a new one?
So yeah, basically, obviously we've been talking a lot about this and thinking a lot about it. The one first thing I always like doing, if you can't tell from the answers I give sometimes, is just reflecting, right? It'd be wrong of me just to start setting new goals and just like say I want to do all this stuff without actually going back and seeing like what did I do well this year? Where could I always like to see where I could improve, because if there's never a point where I assess where I could improve, like it just then you never can improve. Like you feel like you have everything figured out, and I don't think I'll ever be at a point where I sit here and say, hey, I have everything figured out. To me, that's just not the way you grow. But I really like reflecting, looking back on the intentions we had, the things we said we were going to do, some of the amazing trips that we had, some of the great podcasts we did. Like I really am spending time, like whenever I get a chance to just grab a pen and paper and just think about, where this entire year went and all of the great parts and all the things we could improve on, right? Because once again, there will always be those things. The other thing I'm really doing right now, it's not really tied to the new year, is I am evaluating my habits and just trying to see where I could like make some changes, especially going into this winter season. I've been experimenting with late night walks. So like not late night, but once my daughter goes to bed, I'll just take the dogs and I'll see if I hit my steps. And I've been experimenting with like an 8 p.m. walk, which has been really good. So right now I'm also just in the process of figuring out, okay, when am I going to get my meditation in consistently? I've been doing maybe one walk. How can I get my second one in? So I'm also reevaluating my habits and just trying to see what works best based off of, the different time, the different weather and all that stuff that we're about to be, just going through, of course. And then the last thing is just setting intentions for this next year, right? It's just going to be, hey, what do I actually want to accomplish? So I really like to just spend time thinking about all that. And once again, one of my biggest tips and something I've made a mistake on is just trying to list out like 30 different things. Like I remember there was a couple years ago, I set my goals. And then when I went to go look at the list, I didn't look at them the entire year. And then there was like 25 things. I think I even had on there to learn how to fish and then to get my vehicle to a certain speed. It was just so random. And like, don't get me wrong, it's good to have these intentions, but it was just like I was really fired up for like that one specific day. Like I had a big coffee in hand, I was by the fire, and I was just like, man, what do I want to do this year? And I don't really love that, because like most people will do this stuff and then just never look at it, never think about it. Instead, I like to just add in gradual habits and add in things that I want to do and not really make it just be for a certain day. Like January 1st, I'm going to be a new man. I'm cutting out everything and I'm going all in. It's just like, I want to start early. That's another thing, is like, I refuse to be the person to start on January 1st. Like right now it's like mid-December. If I want to do something, I'm not saying I want to do 10,000 steps January 1st. I started to do it 2 weeks ago. That was my main goal. So that's one of my biggest recommendations and something I'm trying to do personally.
Yeah, and I think on that note of reflection, I think there's nothing wrong with calling yourself out a bit. So even I just saw our business goals. We only achieved 1 out of 5. We set our goals very high, so it doesn't surprise me. I think that's usually about where I'm at. So definitely not a crazy like rate of success, but you can ask yourself like, what went wrong? Where can I improve? And then you can aim to start to make that change in the new year, right? Because if you're not realistic with your situation in the past, you're not going to learn for the future, right? And for us, even, I think you can say, why did I miss this mark? What do I need to do different? And one thing I even like to tell clients is sometimes like small progress is phenomenal progress for the situation. Like even looking back retroactively on this year, this ended up being like a way tougher year. Like a lot of stuff happened that I definitely had no anticipation of happening. And it was a big challenge, but there was still progress made. There was still growth there. And you can take that and say, okay, even with all that, I still did all this, which is amazing. But I do notice I'm falling short here, here, and here, but I'm doing really good here. And then you can start to create new systems and plans to improve on that. And I think, as Kyle had mentioned, like that position of reflection is everything. And then every year, I think you can do a really, really deep dive. That time you're fired up with your coffee. Usually I'll mend my bucket list. I'll look at some things I did this year that I loved. I'll look at things I'd like to do into the next year. I'll set some big goals for the year. And then you can start to break that down into smaller, more realistic things. And a year is such a crazy time frame. I think it's hard to nail exactly where you want to be or what you want to have done, but you can begin that process. You can begin that reflection. And I love what Kyle said. Anything I'm doing now, I'm doing it now. So even one of our challenges, it's like a small thing, but we want to make our podcast 10% better each week. So if you're watching this, we finally paid someone to do our thumbnails instead of us doing them very poorly, to be honest. So that's what we're doing this week. We have a full-time editor coming coming on at the start of January. So the episodes will be very engaging to watch on video. We're looking to be on more podcasts. So if you have a podcast or you know anyone with a podcast, me and Kyle are happy to be guests. Even if you don't have a big podcast, we'd love to help some newer people out who are perhaps exploring it, because we had a lot of help when we got started. But case in point, like, I'm taking that action now. I'm not waiting till January 1st. Like, we want to get better, and getting 10% better to me is so doable. And if I do that week after week for like 52 weeks or whatever it is, this podcast can be 520% better. So we want you to be excited for that process. But you can see that I'm doing things now, and I'm asking myself, like, week to week, what will that look like? How will my goals, how will my habits, how will all these things change or evolve to support these new goals? So those are the big things I'm doing. Fitness wise, I love starting the new year with a challenge, because a challenge is exactly that, right? Like, when you have a challenge in front of you and it's like, okay, no alcohol for the whole month. That's not easy. There's events, maybe someone has a party, maybe there's something going on, you're at a restaurant with friends. But that's where a challenge is good, because you can break those beliefs, right? If you're like, oh my gosh, I could never envision going to a dinner with my friends and being that one person who doesn't drink, you can do that and go, oh my gosh, that wasn't that bad. Like, maybe I don't need to just drink out of like social pressure every single time, or I can hit my steps even when the weather sucks and it's cold. Here are some ways I was creative, and I can actually bump that up. And you carry that momentum for the rest of the year when you do something harder like that. It allows you to evolve and elevate to the next level. So that's how I like to start my year, especially in terms of a challenge, really just driving up the best physique, having excitement to different areas of your life. And I think you can have more excitement when you have a plan.
Yeah, and you really have to pay attention to what Josh just said. Like, if you've made it this far in the episode, you're obviously a beast. Like, you want to be better. But what he said was have an actual plan. Like, when he texted me and said, hey, I really think we can get this podcast 10% better, he didn't just say that. He sent along the 5 steps that he believes can help for us to begin with. And I see so many people fail in their goals because they say, hey, I want to get in shape this year. But then there's like no action steps, right? It's just like, you say, oh, how are you going to do that? It's like, eat better, I think. Like, there's nothing involved there. So I really, really encourage you to actually spend time figuring out, when you set a goal, what are the 3 things I'm going to implement right now to help me get there? And so with that, obviously the greatest place you can start for this new year to build momentum is going to be in our challenge. As we mentioned, we're hyping it up because it'll be the greatest thing you ever do. I promise you, you are going to look back and be so happy that you took us up on this amazing offer. All you have to do is message us New Year's Challenge to Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit. Make sure to share this episode with someone who you feel like could learn from it or benefit, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace out.